get too far into this. Thank you all for joining us. We're really excited for our topic today on the Children's Advocacy Centers of Arkansas and how they can support schools in your prevention efforts, but also their function kind of in the role of what happens in the child abuse investigation process. So many of you know that this year is our child maltreatment year. And so I've been trying to bring sessions to you about what happens once that call is made, or what's the process behind our child maltreatment reporting and investigation in Arkansas. And our advocacy centers play a role in that. So we're really glad to have them as a partner. My name is Suzanne Jones. I'm the Safe Schools Coordinator here at the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. And so thank you for joining us. I know this is a hectic time of the year, and it's never a good time to find time during the day to get teachers out of the classrooms, but we've got a good group, a large group that's joining us today. A few housekeeping things. This session is being recorded, so you may have had to agree to the recording piece, the recording question. It will be posted on the Safe Schools website, and I'll give you all a link to be able to share that if you have colleagues who weren't able to make it today and you'd like to get the information to them. Many of you may see, let me turn on transcripting. Across the bottom of your screen, you should see some different control options. One of them should be live transcripting, or it might say closed caption. If you want to turn that on, you'll be able to see the closed caption rolling across the screen if that helps you use it as you need. But also, if you're seeing a lag, like if you're seeing your internet's a little bit slow, or if our presenter's lagging, if you turn that on, sometimes it helps fill in the gaps of what the internet or the sound might lose. So that's just a tip there. Today, as we go through the session, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat button, and you'll see that again across the bottom of your screen. Taylor has said we'll kind of take questions as she goes, but then we can also have a Q&A at the end if necessary. Many of you, I think, have gotten to this session because you're on my mailing list. In a few minutes, I'm going to pop some information into the chat, and one of the pieces will be the link to sign up for my mailing list. If you're not on there, feel free to sign up. You'll get information about all things school safety resources that we have going on, and more trainings like this that we host throughout the year. I'll also have a short evaluation for you that I'll ask that you do at the end of this session. It's just 6 questions. We're just trying to get some feedback and some information about how we can provide the best sessions moving forward. Everyone who attends today can get a certificate. If you have registered through ESC Works or through myself, if you sent me an email, if you got this link basically from me, then you are on my list and I will make sure I get a certificate to you. If you got this link from someone else, if it was shared with you, welcome, thank you for being here. Just send me an email and let me know who you are so I can make sure and get you a certificate, and that way I've got a way to communicate with you. And I'll put my email in the chat in just a second as well. It takes me about a week to turn around the data. Now I'm going to do my best and try to do it today because I'm going to be out through the middle of next week with meetings. So you'll either get all this information at the end of today, or you'll get it sometime next week towards the end of the week. But you'll get an email with your certificate and all your information with it, and a reminder on the evaluation. Because we are talking about possibly some sensitive issues, you know, when we start talking about children and some of those topics that go around with child maltreatment or child abuse, just keep your comments in the chat mindful of respect for people who have gone through these situations. So, you know, if we're talking about a topic and you think, oh, I've got a student who's gone through that, or I've got a student who was referred to the center, maybe try to anonymize that as much as possible. We want to make sure that we're not sharing too much information on our students. I believe that is everything that I have for you. I will be kind of in the background, so if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat to reach me. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Taylor. And thank you, Taylor, for being here with us. We're really excited to hear what you have to say about the advocacy centers.
Thank you so much, Susan. And thank you all for being here today. We will take questions throughout, like she stated. I'm going to share my PowerPoint with you all here. So like Suzanne stated, we're going to talk about child abuse investigation. What happens after you make a child abuse call? And we will talk about the role of the Child Advocacy Center and how we play a huge part in child abuse investigations. My name is Taylor May. I am the Supervisor of Prevention and Community Education here at the Cooper Anthony Mercy Child Advocacy Center in Hot Springs. Just a little background. Prior to my current role, I was the lead child advocate. I've been an education advocate, as well as an investigator for the Arkansas State Police Crimes Against Children Division. I also did case management for foster care children at Second Chance Youth Ranch. And prior to that, I worked at the Criminal Justice Institute. So very passionate about children and preventing child abuse. So thank you so much for being here, and let's get started. So as you all know, when you call the child abuse hotline, they'll tell you at the end of the call, yes, this is accepted. It's going to be assigned to DHS or Arkansas State Police Crimes Against Children Division. Both of those agencies work under the same child maltreatment law, but they investigate different types of maltreatment allegations. So, for example, the Arkansas State Police Crimes Against Children Division, they are working mostly severe forms of maltreatment. They're called Priority 1 cases. They have approximately 24 hours to make contact with the alleged victim to ascertain their safety and then refer them to the Child Advocacy Center. On the other hand, you have DHS, the Division of Children and Family Services, and they work different types of forms of maltreatment allegations that may not be as severe. So although these two agencies work under the same child maltreatment law, they have different goals and different end results that they're looking for. But even after you call the child maltreatment, the child abuse hotline, say they tell you this doesn't meet criteria, it's going to be screened out. You as a professional and as a mandated reporter, you can still choose to call local law enforcement and see if maybe what your concern is, see if that concern meets criminal law. It may not meet child maltreatment law, but maybe it meets criminal law. So that's why we put here, always remember to dual report to local law enforcement in your jurisdiction. So after the call is made to the hotline and assigned to an investigator, whether it's DHS or Arkansas State Police Crimes Against Children Division, or it doesn't get accepted, but local law enforcement gets a report, any of these agencies will then refer the children to us. But it's really important to note that these investigators have the discretion if they refer the children to us. So there are tons of reports made every single day, but we won't necessarily see every single kid. It just depends on if the investigator refers them to us. So the best case is that all children come to us to receive services, and I'll talk about our services in a moment, but it's best practice that a child is afforded a forensic interview, and all of the services happen under one roof right here at the Child Advocacy Center. So let's talk about those services. As you can see here, we offer advocacy services, forensic interviewing, medical exams, mental health services, prevention education, and community education, and all of our services are free. So when a family comes through our doors, they can receive every single service free. The child and family are not having to go to the school counselor, to the police department, to DHS, to the hospital, to the PCP, and it causes a lot of confusion and hurts the cases oftentimes. So best practice is the child comes here, but I want to talk about each component that we offer. So advocacy. Every child and family, they are assigned a child advocate. As soon as they walk through our doors, the advocate meets them right where they're at. and works with them throughout the entire process of an investigation and beyond. So there's never a time where a child comes here and we would close a case. The advocate is there. If the child's 5 years old today, and then when they turn 15, they want to come back here for services, all they have to do is pick up the phone and call. That referral is always open. So our advocates are amazing. They do amazing work with the children and non-offending caregivers. But when a child is referred here, they're referred here for a forensic interview. And what that is our trained forensic interviewers. They're highly skilled and trained. They are going to talk to the child, whether it's an alleged victim, a witness, or a sibling. Any of the children in the household can be interviewed. So child is referred here. They're going to be speaking with our forensic interviewer. Everything that is said in the forensic interview room, it's audio and video recorded, and it is legally defensible if the case goes to court or anything. So a lot of people say, well, I don't want my child to go alone with someone in another room. Can I be in there? And the answer is no. It has to just be the interviewer and the child. And there are various reasons, but just to hit on a few, sometimes a defense attorney or someone else could say, well, the parent coached the child on what to say in the interview room. Or oftentimes, maybe the child hasn't disclosed everything that has happened. And so for them to have that time with the interviewer, they can really open up and share about anything and everything and not have anxiety or fear if their parents are sitting in there with them. So forensic interviews are amazing. We never set a time frame on how long a child will be in the forensic interview room. It just depends on that child and their specific needs and what trauma they've endured or witnessed. We also offer medical exams. So that could be a medical exam, head to toe checkup. It could be STD testing. And we also offer rape kits, depending on the time frame of the abuse. We have very highly skilled nurses here. They're actually sexual assault nurse examiners. SANE is the acronym. So if a child comes here and maybe they were abused 5 years ago, and so we would still offer them an exam, leave it up to the child. And a lot of times people say, well, why would they have an exam? It's been 5 years. The injuries, if there were any, they would be healed. And they're absolutely right. Injuries heal very, very quickly, especially to the genital areas. But we're offering that exam for that child to have a peace of mind, to know that their body is okay, and to know there's nothing wrong with me. I look fine. I don't have any diseases or anything like that. So that is a service we do offer. And even if a child comes in today and they're offered the exam and they say, no, I just don't want to do that. But in 2 weeks, they call us back. Hey, I've been thinking, and I do think I want to come in and have some lab work done. Then they can come in and have the lab work done. Another component service that we offer is mental health services. And we believe that this is really, really key for the hope and healing for the child and even the family when they're going through an investigation of any sort. So we have several mental health therapists here that are trained specifically in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral counseling, EMDR, CPP, play therapy, where they can really, really, really work with the children specifically on trauma topics. So it's different than maybe just like a school counselor that are working more with behavioral issues. So we really, every child that comes here, they're going to have a referral to mental health services. no matter what they went through, no matter how severe it was or not as severe, that referral is always, always open. And our advocates do a child and adolescent trauma screening with every single child. That way they can gauge where are they with their trauma score. Is it low? Is it high? And then they can categorize and triage the mental health follow-up services. But even like the other services, if a child comes in today and they're not exhibiting a level of trauma, maybe they're not a good fit for trauma-focused cognitive behavioral counseling. So maybe we would refer them out to one of our MOU partners, such as Ouachita Behavioral Health and Wellness, something like that. But maybe in 5 years, something else happens, or they just say, well, now it's really hitting me. I really need some trauma work. Then they can come back to us. Another piece that we offer is our prevention education and community education. So that is what I do now. We go into schools and present a body safety program, kindergarten through 3rd right now, but we also train adults, educators, law enforcement, anybody who wants training on any topics, whether it's child maltreatment and mandated reporting. For law enforcement, what do you do on scene, with a child in front of you? We can do any trainings, human trafficking, domestic violence, stewards of children. We do trainings with like different camps for code of conduct, anything, and all of our services are free. I do want to talk briefly on what used to happen before child advocacy centers were created. Child advocacy centers were created in the 1980s by Bud Kramer. But before that, there was no teamwork. Oftentimes a victim child would have to tell over and over and over again the most horrific things that have happened to them, and they didn't have a child advocacy center. So these individuals that were assigned to the cases, crimes against children, they would often interview them at school, interview them right there in their house, oftentimes where the abuse occurred, or at an ER, in the hospital room, at the police department, just different places that aren't child friendly and aren't child focused. Oftentimes it would be double teamed interviews where you have this small child and then you have 2 maybe scary adults that are asking questions that aren't open-ended and child friendly. And before, oftentimes you would have a child that says, something happened, and by the time they've spoken to all these different individuals and they say, well, their story changed a little bit, and then the child's not believed. So having a child advocacy center is just amazing. It's a one-stop shop for all services. We can lay out the blueprint for every single family. They come here, they need help with filing for a divorce. They need help with child support. They need help with housing, food, transportation. We can help with any and all that they need. And I know that a lot of you are not in our service area. We serve 6 counties. We serve Garland County, Saline County, Grant County, Hot Spring County, Polk County, and Montgomery County. But if you're not in our service area, that's okay. There are 17 child advocacy centers in the state of Arkansas. So the goal of child advocacy centers is that the family will not have to travel more than 1 hour for free services. So at the beginning, I told you I'm here at the Hot Springs office, but we have an office in Benton, and we have an office in Polk County, which is out in Mena. And we are also opening an alternative location in Grant County, so Sheridan, Poen area. But wherever you're at, there's going to be a child advocacy center somewhere nearby. Child advocacy centers work under a multidisciplinary team. So when a child is referred here, The investigative agencies will be at the office. They will be here in our observation room watching that child's interview live. They're just not in the room with them. And so oftentimes we have local law enforcement, prosecution, and DHS and Arkansas State Police Crimes Against Children. All of those individuals are in the observation room along with our child advocates, and they're there hearing the interview live. And it helps from the onset for the state police to know, okay, here's my next move. Here's who I need to speak to next. And then law enforcement and prosecution, hey, maybe we need to do a search warrant and go to the home and collect evidence. So it's really, really important that everyone come to the interview right when the child's being interviewed, and everyone can take their own steps. We'll work with juvenile court. We work with schools, school counselors, anybody that's working with children. Any questions so far?
Taylor, we do have one question. So if someone comes, can they access mental health services through CAC if they are already connected with another mental health agency? And is there any kind of collaboration between CAC and the current therapist?
Absolutely. So the only thing is, so yes, say a child is being seen at counseling clinic in Benton and they want to refer the child to us, there would have to be some sort of investigation or report, whether that's through the child abuse hotline or local law enforcement. Or maybe they say, well, they had a report last month. That investigator that was assigned the report would have to refer the child to us. So the counselor at the other agency could not just refer a child to us. But after a child is referred to us, they could even have counseling here and at another place, such as counseling clinic, where they're working on different forms, of therapy. And yes, our therapists can communicate with other therapists. The parents would sign an agreement where they could communicate. Did that answer the question?
Yes, I think that got it.
Okay.
Oh, well, one more has come in. What happens if a child recants the disclosure?
Okay, so yes, sometimes we do have children that recant. They would still have services here. Oftentimes, if a child recants, we want to know more about that. Has something else happened? Would we bring the child back in a few weeks or a month to have them re-interviewed? Because if they're recanting, oftentimes maybe they're being coached or they have shame or fear. So we would want to know more about that, but services are absolutely still open, no matter, even if a child comes here and they disclose nothing. Maybe they were referred here as a witness of domestic violence. And then they get in the interview room, they're like, yeah, I haven't seen anything, haven't heard anything. All is well at my house. That's okay. The services are still here for them. Here is a map for you all with the different advocacy centers in the state of Arkansas. So as you can see here, they're everywhere. You can see in the orangish yellow color is where I work in the 6 counties that we serve. But check this map out wherever you're at and partner with your local child advocacy center. So just a little bit more about the Cooper Anthony Mercy Child Advocacy Center. We opened our doors in 2003. We are unique in the fact that we are hospital-based employees. So we do have the backing of Mercy Hospital. As I've said, all of our services are free. On average, it costs about $2,800 per child to receive their interview, medical exams, therapy, court prep, prosecution, all the way through. And then we are on call 24/7. We know abuse isn't just 9 to 5. We have a team that's always on call after hours for emergent care. I've already touched on this. Here are our counties that we serve and our 3 offices that we have. We opened our Benton office in 2018. It's over by the Benton Police Department, and it is so crazy that a lot of people in Saline County, they still don't know that we're there. So we are there. We are very much in Saline County. And then in our MENA office, we're just there as needed. I'm going to touch on some statistics just from last year that our office, the children that we served. So in 2021, we saw 376 children just at our Hot Springs office. And when I say that we saw them, that means they were referred here for a forensic interview, that initial interview. At our Benton office, 275, and then at our MENA office, 74 children, for a total of 726 children in 2021. And I will tell you, in 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, we had a record year. We served 746 children. It was very, very busy. We never shut our doors. We never went and worked remotely. We were actually deemed essential workers by the governor in 2020. But a lot of people want to know, what are children referred here? What is the allegation type? So I put here on the screen, 62% of our children are referred. Just the initial referral is that there is an allegation of sexual abuse, 16% physical abuse, and then 22% could be neglect or other. So other could be just witnessing abuse. We've had a lot of children that have witnessed homicide. And so they would be referred here by our local law enforcement. But just because a child is referred here for one form of child maltreatment or one allegation type, oftentimes once they get here and they are afforded that forensic interview, actually 66% of the time, we find out that there's actually more going on in the home. These children have been poly-victimized, more than one form of abuse once they are here, because our forensic interviewers, they do an incredible job of screening the child for every single form of maltreatment. They don't just go in, hey, this child is here for sexual abuse, we're only going to touch on sexual abuse. They let the child talk about anything and everything that has ever happened to them. So that's where the child will trust the interviewer and really be able to open up. And all the interview questions are open-ended, very child-friendly, where the child is comfortable. Any questions?
We did have one regarding the statistics. So this is kind of for your the 6 counties that you serve. Are most do the other centers have this kind of data so that they could reach out to them and kind of get a snapshot for their specific area?
Absolutely. Every center in the state, we use the same database. So reports can be obtained on every center. Yes. I'm going to show a video, and then please let me know if you have any questions. It can be anything related to child advocacy centers. Please share in the chat box. Let's watch the video just real quick.
Child Advocacy Center provides a response to allegations of child abuse. It is a coordinated, comprehensive approach in the fight against child abuse. The Advocacy Center is there to provide that blueprint to that family and that child. So as this process is unfolding, they will have someone that is there for them in the best interest of the child and putting that child and that family first.
When a child comes into the interview room, a lot of times they don't know why they're there, and they've never been in a situation where they are the holder of the knowledge. So it's a very unique experience being in the room.
The forensic interview is essential. We're talking about some of the most traumatic experiences being relived in the moment. And having a professional who's able to not only navigate that difficult situation, but also extract key and critical case information is invaluable.
The job of an advocate is to meet the family right where they're at as soon as they walk through our doors. We're able to help the family with resources and provide support throughout the process of an investigation. When the caregiver first walks through our doors, they're oftentimes scared, nervous, and unsure of the process. We are able to walk them through the process and provide comfort and meet them right where they're at. When they leave here, they feel heard and understood, and we're able to help them with resources throughout the investigative process.
My experience with the CAC was absolutely incredible. Number one, I knew that when I was taken there that I was never going to go back to my abusive home situation. And so I remember going in, and obviously like every other child, it's pretty scary. You know, not a lot of things are familiar. The people there obviously cared about me.
All our services here at CAMCAC are free, and every year the number of children that we serve increases. On average, it costs about $2,800 per child, so donations are paramount to us being able to provide services. Unfortunately, we are needed, but fortunately, we are here. CAMCAC's goal is to empower children to find their voice, to heal from previous abuse, and prevent further abuse.
When we first walked into the door at the Benton CAC, I was extremely overwhelmed and apprehensive and just not excited to be there again, or at any advocacy center, or going through this process again. But by the time that we left, I had realized that this was completely different than every other time before. We felt like something was going to happen this time.
So here at CAMCAC, we use evidence-based practices to approach the trauma. We have TFCBT trained therapists, child parent psychotherapy, and EMDR that we use with the kids that have experienced trauma.
I can't even list the wonderful things about having the CAC and how it affects a prosecutor and how it helps a prosecutor in their case. I started this profession back in 1997 before there were child advocacy centers, and I cannot tell you how the system and having a child advocacy center is so beneficial to not only the criminal case, but to the well-being of the child during the proceedings and after the case.
A child.
And as you could see in the video, everyone involved on our multidisciplinary team, they see the benefit of having a child advocacy center. Our advocates can work with the families and help them get prepared for criminal trials and sit with the families throughout the criminal proceedings and beyond. So I really want to emphasize that a child that's referred here, their referral is open until their 18th birthday. So having the CAC can be very, very beneficial to these children. And I know as an educator, sometimes there can be barriers. You know, do I need to call the hotline? Is it worth it? You know, last time they came, you know, maybe the investigator came to your school and maybe it was unsubstantiated, because they do have different standards that they have to meet. And it may wear on you. You may, you know, have those barriers. Maybe you grew up with the alleged offender and it's just really hard to believe. But please, 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 always, if you have any concern, please call the Child Abuse Hotline and know that the Child Advocacy Center is here. We're ready to help anytime. Anyone think of any questions?
Yeah, so they asked, is it just up to the investigator whether they refer to CAC, and are there any like hard and fast requirements to help guide them in that referral?
Yeah, so it is up to them to refer the child to us, but in their policies and procedures, it is notated in there that it's best practice that all children are referred here, especially the alleged victims. They're going to be referred here because they know that the resources are here, and the interview is audio and video recorded. So you can actually see the expressions on the child's face. But think of a situation, just an example would be, say Arkansas State Police Crimes Against Children get a call, the hotline calls them and they say, hey, we have an in-home offender. Child has been abused, within 24 hours, the child is in danger. They're in imminent danger. They're in home with the offender. At that time, the investigator may have to go directly to the house because the child is in imminent danger. Maybe all of the caregivers are listed as alleged offenders. Then at that point, the investigator may have to go out to the home to ascertain the child's safety and see what's going on right then and there. And maybe they can't refer them to us immediately because they don't have anyone to bring them, or it's an imminent danger situation. But all investigators, I know for sure through the Arkansas State Police Crimes Against Children Division, they have been through Child First, which is the forensic interviewing protocol that the forensic interviewers use. So all state police investigators have been or go through that training. So they know what to ask children and they know the protocol.
Kind of a follow-up to that, they ask if they make a referral, if they call the hotline, can they kind of request that the CAC be considered, or could the person calling the hotline just encourage that thought from in the report?
Yes, so absolutely. When you call the hotline, they're going to ask you a series of questions and they'll say something like, is there anything else that you want to share? Or does anyone else know about this? And at that point, you could say, hey, we have a great relationship with our Child Advocacy Center. I would just really like this to be noted that I think the child could benefit from the CAC. That way, you as the reporter, whatever you say, the hotline operator is going to type that in the referral to the investigator. So yes, you can. And I'll tell you, here in our counties, we do see a lot of the children. We have great relationships with our investigators, and they do try to refer every single child to us.
I think you're hitting on one of the things. I'm gonna put in a personal comment right now.
Yeah.
I've been in education 28 years. I've made hotline calls. I've made multiple hotline calls, and there's been times in my career where I've felt this. But what I've heard the last 10 or 15 years breaks my heart working with educators. It's almost that they feel like the hotline doesn't work, or they're giving up on the hotline. And when I came into this position, somehow I felt like, okay, this is going to be my soapbox. This is going to be my platform. Is don't ever give up on the hotline. There, it may not be perfect. It may not get the results every time that we want, but it's what can help benefit kids. And so understanding what happens behind that call, and just understanding that not every call initiates a SWAT team swarming in on a house and yanking the kid out in the middle of the night, which is sometimes as educators what we want to happen. We think, oh, this child's in danger right now, but there has to be an investigative process. There has to be some consideration to it. So you've hit on some very good points and processes that I hope will help all of our educators understand. Make the call, and let the system work. Let the process happen. Make the call. So that's my sidewalk. Just a couple other questions. So if I'm understanding the question right, the student disclosed that she had been sexually assaulted by her dad, but the other parent asked her to lie or recant. So the other parent was kind of involved in it. The dad had some documentation issues about being here in the United States. So I guess they're asking what kind of happens when you've got a kid saying something, but one parent says no and kind of is balancing it off.
Yeah, so if you have that situation, report it. Even if the child recants in this situation, so the dad is the offender, but the mom is also the offender because she is failure to protect. She is allowing the abuse to occur. She is coaching the child. So they're actually both alleged offenders. So even if nothing happens to the dad on the sexual abuse end, maybe something's going to happen with the mom for failing to protect and allowing the abuse to occur. So, just looking at it on a smaller scale, go ahead and make the call. It's not wasted time. If the child does come to the CAC and they say, you know what, I made that up, or it was a bad dream, nothing happened. This is just a waste of time. If they say that today, and then they see how we operate here. Oh, those interviewers and advocates were so kind. They called to follow up. Maybe in a year, the child comes back, I need to be honest this time. And another report is generated or opened back up. So it's a whole process, but even in that case, exactly, the mom would be listed as an alleged offender as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. We see adult victims sometimes who struggle with, disclosing what's happened and sharing those feelings, and they may say it one time and then take it back. How can we expect our kids to be stronger than even some of our adults? This is hard for them, and so they don't want anything to happen to mom if it was dad that was hurting them or something. So
absolutely. And they have so much shame and guilt. And even thinking of us as adults, professionals, it is very hard to talk about these topics, especially child abuse or sexual abuse. Think about the victim child. They may not even have the verbiage to tell what's happening. What if they don't have the proper names of their body parts? Then how in the world are we expecting them to come forward with anything? They don't have the verbiage. So that is something that I really, really hit on when we go into the schools and we teach Empower Me Body Safety Program. We talk about keeping your privates private. Well, what are your private body parts? They're your body parts that are covered up by your bathing suits. No one should look at or touch them. We talk about safe, clean, healthy touches by like doctors, nurses, when you're in the bathtub getting clean. We talk about the uh-oh feeling. If anything ever makes you uncomfortable, tell someone. Well, who do I tell? No one in my house believes me. And we name 5 safe adults. We incorporate the schools. Oh yeah, did you know that you have your teacher? Oh, well, it didn't happen at school. It doesn't matter. You have your teacher, your counselor, your bus driver, your principal, your school nurse, and we incorporate everyone. And just seeing the children's faces when we present this program, it truly is amazing. At the beginning, they're like, I don't have any safe adults and nobody believes me. And then at the end, they're like, oh yeah, I got 10 safe adults and I will tell. And I tell them, you keep on telling until someone listens and someone keeps you safe. And that is a very, very powerful program, because oftentimes the children do disclose following the program, and they feel empowered. So yeah, it's like what you were saying, it's really, really hard that we would expect a child to tell every little detail. What did it smell like, taste like? What did you hear? When they're just children and they may not have the language.
So another question that came in, are local police also trained in child first? I had a student made a disclosure at a local PD. It was recorded. The parent reported it wasn't admissible, presumably because it didn't happen at the CAC.
Okay, so that's kind of a tricky question. So I'll try to narrow it down. So local law enforcement. So just use the police department, for example. You have patrol officers. They are not criminal investigators, right? But oftentimes they are the ones that are dispatched to a report or a call. So they are the first ones to have contact with this victim child. We do train law enforcement on do not interview a child. Get the basic info, whether it's from the caregiver. Do not talk to the child. Write your report. So patrol would write their report, send the report to the Criminal Investigative Division, where there are specific special victim detectives that are working these cases. And yes, they have opportunity to go through the training, But even though they've gone through the training, forensic interviewing training, Child First, it doesn't mean that they are forensic interviewers and should be conducting interviews at the police department on camera. It doesn't mean that at all. It's more so that they understand the process of the forensic interview in each step, and they still refer the child to us. So it's a process, even with law enforcement. And I do want to state, local law enforcement, they have different goals and burdens to meet. So they are criminal investigators, whereas DHS and state police, they are civil investigators where they only work child maltreatment. All they need is a preponderance of the evidence. So to put that into perspective, that could be on a scale of 1 to 100, they need 51% to say, you know what, I think this happened, more likely than not this happened, is their burden. But law enforcement, they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt before they're issuing a warrant or making an arrest. So although they work together, they have separate goals that they have to reach. I hope that answered the question and wasn't just a big circle.
I think you make a good point, and I'm gonna repeat something I heard just so you can clarify for me, because I'm not sure if I understood this analogy correctly from someone else that was saying it. So it's kind of going back to what you said about the difference between a criminal act, like there might be something criminal that's going on that's not necessarily the abuse. So there was a report that a child was being abused while the parent was high or drunk or something, like under the influence of a substance.
Mhm.
There wasn't enough data information for it to be a justified child maltreatment report. But when the person called their local police, there was enough evidence for drug charges. And so that brought in the law enforcement piece, which then ultimately got more information, got more details, and it did wind up the child was being abused, but it kind of came the back way. Is that a good analogy? I mean, did I understand that story right when they were saying it? Is that?
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of the times, law enforcement will get called out to a DWI, just an example, and there are children in the car. So at that point, law enforcement, they would call the hotline too, but they're going to arrest the person for DWI. Well, what do we do with the two-year-olds that are in the back seat? Okay, they are in imminent danger. They would call DHS. DHS would respond to the scene, and they would also make a child abuse report. So yes, law enforcement makes the arrest for endangering the welfare of minors as well, and DWI. So they have that portion. And then the children are getting reported to the child abuse hotline for child maltreatment standards for the parents driving under the influence and being neglectful. So yes, a lot could come from those type of situations. Mm-hmm.
If you have any other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We did have a question about the PowerPoint. Are you able to share the document that you have on screen?
Yes, I can share anything. I have tons of resources. Here's my email address. Even if you're outside of my service area, I would love to still work with you. You can follow us on social media. I have tons of resources on all kinds of topics. So yeah, reach out to me. I can share this PowerPoint with you, Suzanne. You can get it out, whatever you all need. I'm glad to help.
Okay. Yeah, if you don't mind to share it with me when I follow up everyone with the email about your certificates and everything, I'll make sure to include the PowerPoint. So it will come to your inbox if you're in here with us. And then also when we post the recording, I'll be sure and put it up there as well for future reference. So I kind of went on a little side moment there a while ago. I want to kind of say something else to that. To my educator friends, I know what it's like to be in the classroom and to see that child day after day after day, and to have made reports and to keep seeing more information. Every time I've taken a child maltreatment training, it seems like I learn another piece to help me be a better reporter when I do make that call. So don't lose faith in the system. It is a system, and we have to be fair to parents. You know, we want to make sure that a parent that's just being falsely accused doesn't get penalized for a false accusation. At the same time, we want to make sure that any child who is being abused is made safe and gotten out of that situation. It's a line that everyone walks, and we've got very good partners with law enforcement and DCFS and the child abuse hotline people who are helping on this system. But it's still hard to see that child every single day and feel powerless. Just to put in a plug for the CASA program here in our state, one of the things I did a few years ago, I started off volunteering as a court-appointed special advocate. So I work very closely with our CAC in Faulkner County, and I'm able to actually help those kids that are in the system. And it gave me such a different view of how the system works. So as an educator, we're used to knowing what's going on in the classroom. We're used to being kind of on that front line of information. And while you may still get information about the report that you made, you don't really understand the whole process back behind the curtain, so to speak. So if you're still feeling that pull that there's something more you need to do, not that educators need anything else on their plate, I'm not saying that, but if you still feel that draw, volunteering as a court-appointed special advocate might be what your heart is telling you that you could do, and that's another way to serve children. Again, our teachers, y'all, bless you for being in the classroom and everything you do every day. It's not something that every teacher needs to do, but if you're feeling that pull, consider look into your CASA program in your county.
Absolutely. There's so many ways to get involved and volunteer, whether it's CASA, through the call, helping foster kids, with your local CAC. What you do, all of you, what you do is so important. And I know it's a hard job, and we really, really appreciate you. If there's ever anything we can do at the Advocacy Center, reach out. We're glad to help. I do want to say again, if you have any concern, even with any of your children, if it's a small concern, report it. Even if it's not accepted, it's documented for reference later on. So it's not wasted time. Even if you say, well, the child keeps coming in dirty, but I know the family is in poverty. Report it. If you're having concern after concern and you've tried to address it, go ahead and report it. It's not wasted time. Even if a child is coming to school dirty or hungry, and that's all you know, that's all that they are showing you on the surface, and you take the step and make the report, and the child is afforded a forensic interview here at the CAC, who knows what may really be going on, that all we thought or you thought was, just neglect or being filthy. So it's not wasted time. Thank you so much for being here. I know this is a tough topic, but it's so important that we get the education out there to everybody about child maltreatment and child advocacy centers.
Absolutely. And thank you for being here with us and sharing that information, because sometimes we're not aware of all the different resources that are available, or what's the strength around the state. So thank you for all that you do for children in your area and in our state, and for helping with educators. If there's any other questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, but we're coming up on the end of our time. You might get 7 minutes back. You might even be able to run to the bathroom before you have to head back to your kiddos. Watch for emails from me. You'll get information. And again, if you got this link to join today from someone other than myself, please send me an email. My email is in the chat. I'll pop everything in here again. And just reach out to me so I've got a line of communication and I can get you your certificate. So let me, I clicked off of something. Let me get back over here too. There we go. There's all those links in the chat again for the evaluation, for the page where this recording will be housed, for sending me an email if you need a certificate, signing up for the mailing list, all of that. And thank you for your time. Feel free to go ahead and jump off, and thank you for all you do. I don't see any other questions, so we'll go ahead and close the meeting.